But Jay, let's just dive right into the
Yeah.
wickage here, and or the carnage, the Wick carnage. John Wick Chapter 4, which is directed by Chad Stahelski, and of course stars Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Ian McShane, Donnie Yen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who else do we got here? Bill Sarsgaard, the late great Lance Reddick,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, and then of course so many others. But of course, this movie, which is like I said, #1 movie in the world, follows John Wick as he uncovers a path to defeating the High Table. But before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. Last time we left John Wick, Jay, in John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, which is just a horrible title.
Every single John Wick movie has a different naming structure. So
well, not really. It's John Wick Chapter 2.
No, isn't it
John
just
Wick
John
Chapter
Wick 2?
3.
Isn't it just John Wick 2?
I thought it was John Wick Chapter 2.
Maybe it is.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is. I don't know. I can look that up while you're talking about this. But then yeah. So looks. Oh nope, it's John Wick Chapter 2.
Oh, okay. All right. They've come back around. It's a sandwich. They got a parabellum sandwich. The meat is parabellum with the two
exactly.
Pieces of bread
You're stuck in the parabellum realm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyway, John was kind of betrayed by his buddy Winston at the end of that film, as Winston got the Continental back, and was kind of left for dead until the Bowery King, played by Larry Fish himself, basically told him to rise up and we're going to get.
I guess.
Yeah, kind of like a zombie too. Yeah, and and like they're gonna get revenge, right? And so this movie is gonna be like the ultimate revenge on Winston and the Continental and the High Table and everything. And I think about 5 minutes into this movie, we kind of forget about all that, and we just we set back on the path of John trying to clear his name so he can live his life peacefully. So
stakes are fairly straightforward.
Very straightforward, but still nonetheless so many things to talk about, Jay. But first off, let's just get your reactions to John Wick Chapter 4. What are they, my friend?
John Wick Chapter 4, I would say overlong, indulgent, and absolutely fantastic. It's
knew it was coming.
You're not going to have a more fun time in a movie theater this year, I don't think. I don't think I will. It's a movie. It's one of those things where, a movie comes out this early and you want to make sure you remember it when the end of the year comes, because it truly will be a contender, I think, for certainly top 20 of the year, because I will echo the sentiments that people have been saying, putting out there over the last week, which is, this is a pretty spectacular action film. And then I'll throw a little bit of cold water on it and say that it's my third favorite John Wick film. I will say that. It is.
What's your ranking?
I feel like most people have been absolutely singing its praises as the greatest John Wick film. And I think it's a really, really great movie. But again, this is probably my favorite franchise going right now. This film, I think this is... So I prefer John Wick 3 and John Wick 1. Those are my two favorites.
Okay.
And I prefer John Wick 3 because it's really heavy on world building, but takes itself really seriously, except for a few jokes. John Wick 4 and John Wick 2, they're a little goofier. And I don't love that quite as much. I think people attack people in the groin like 15 times in this movie, to the point where it was getting a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
there was a lot of groin action going on.
A lot of groinage in this one. And I think the other thing I think about this film, and I'm going to be largely very, very positive about this movie, but I think my biggest piece of criticism about this, it is a 2-hour, 40-minute movie. It's long. And you understand Stahelski's intent was kind of to make this epic final chapter. Truly, he's described it as sort of his Lawrence of Arabia, really, is what he has said about
There's
the movie.
Literally a shot in the movie. It's the matchstick shot.
Yeah.
From Lawrence of Arabia.
He does not make it a secret that he's trying to
lean
into it, if you know what I mean.
I mean, when you saw that shot, you can't help but not grin like a
No,
kid in a
there's a
candy
bunch
shop.
of there's a bunch. I found there to be a lot of homages in this movie.
There's a ton of homages
I
in
think
this.
there's a lot of nods to the Wachowskis, The Matrix, which Stahelski was intimately involved with. I think more overtly than any other film in this series, this is nodding at them as huge influences on him as a filmmaker. And this is it's kind of interesting because the first 25 to 30 minutes are kind of all set up and you're like, wow, there's been no huge fight scenes yet. There's been kind of this one tease that is the true homage to Lawrence of Arabia, and then it is like 85% of the rest of the movie is just action.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times where I felt like it was getting a meal that was all ice cream. It was like, this is too much dessert for me. It's kind of overwhelming in how, like, I think I want ice cream, and then you're just like putting a tube down my throat and force feeding me ice cream. And it can be a little too much, because what I like about 3 is that it does lean so much into the world and the mythos of John Wick, which a lot of people find kind of exhausting, but I find pretty exhilarating.
Mm.
And this film, if you take all of the scenes in a vacuum, I would say fantastic. This is going to be a great, like, I want to watch one scene of John Wick on YouTube and I will be satisfied if I pick any single one. But when they come at you at such a rapid pace, I felt like it was a little overwhelming. It sort of ended up watering down the action sequences a little bit for me. But overall, fantastic time. Great end of the series. One final little criticism. I thought the ending was a little rushed, and maybe we'll get into the ending when we get into spoiler territory.
I think we'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard
but
not to. There's a lot of people
a
have seen
wonderful, wonderful time at the movies. Some of the greatest action you'll see. It is such a breath of fresh air in the world of contemporary action cinema. Keanu's still got it. Stahelski has definitely proven to be the superior filmmaker of that duo in the first John Wick. It was a whole lot of fun. It's a blast. Apparently the kill count in this is 140 from John Wick, so just prepare
Could have
yourself.
fooled me. I thought it was a lot larger than that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, that is an unbelievable number of kills. There's a lot of hordes of people that come at him at various points in this film, more than kind of some of the other movies where it's largely one-on-one, from one guy to the next guy to the next guy. In this one, it's from 3 guys to 4 guys to 3 more guys. It is a lot of movie, and I like that about it. And also, I think that's where its weaknesses kind of end up showing up as well. So, wildly ambitious film, especially for an action film, especially for, you go watch John Wick 1, and then if you go directly to John Wick 4, you'll be like, how did we get here? What happened?
I think you'd be lost. Yeah.
And it's crazy that this series has become what it is, but I'm very happy that we have it. A really, really, really good film. I had a blast.
Well, I think what's so great about what you just said there, Jay, is like, this is a franchise that's 4 movies in and has so much world building and connective tissue that, like, when you watch, and I'm not trying to bring them up, but when you watch other franchises like the DCU or the MCU, no, there's like movies you can just skip and you'll be fine. You know what I mean? Because like you can skip some of them and you'll be really good for whatever happens there. And yet, if you stay for the whole thing, like, the 30 movies in, it still feels like at times there's not nearly as much mystery or intrigue to continue to learn about these worlds. And there's a lot of subtle detail, especially in this film, too, that they really don't even have to like introduce places anymore. They're so established that, like, when they go to this new Continental, which is at the sort of the beginning of the film, right? When they're in the where does it take place in Osaka?
Osaka Continental.
Yeah. It's just like you're in the Osaka Continental. You're not like making a big darn deal about it anymore. You know what I mean? And when you're in Paris or when you're, and doing all these different locations, it's like
It's
You're
definitely
just
got
there.
more complicated. The first film, it's like there's this Continental Hotel.
Let me tell you
It's
about
where
it. It's in the
assassins
heart of
go.
it's the
You're
heart of
not
New York.
allowed to do business
Yep.
on the property. Pretty
Now they're just
laid out
like,
there, pretty normal. When you bring the table into it, then we get a little complicated, and
yeah.
that's what I like in John Wick 3. And then in
Mhm.
2, what I don't. That's
So
kind
is
of
two
where the
your least
real
favorite?
world building starts, where it's like, oh, I'm the sommelier of pistols, and I'm like, a little cute for me. I mean, it's
I
fun.
like it.
I
I
love
like that movie.
Sarah
Yeah.
Fenowitz, but a little laid
Mhm.
on a little thick for me. But
The
then
Taylor.
then they
You know.
really lean into it in 3, and I loved it. But some
Yeah,
people
I
found it a
see
little
it
exhausting.
like so. I. This is what I love about them is that they continue to build their world, and it's so lived in 4 films in, and it has what some franchises die for in like 15, 20 films. It feels like, and I will say this about my rankings, um, is that I actually really like John Wick 2. I like it
A
because
lot of people think say it's their favorite. It's just not mine. It's great.
it's
Again, it's great. This franchise is incredible.
honestly, weirdly enough, I felt like the first John Wick was ultimately just a massive surprise. I did not see that in a theater. Watched it on like HBO, and I literally watched John Wick 1 again the next night with my then girlfriend, now wife, just so that she can confirm that I wasn't an idiot for thinking this movie was great. And then she's like, "No, this is a great movie." I said, "Okay, okay, okay." And the second one, I had such a great time with it. I think it sort of it still leans into the idea of John wanting to kind of get out essentially.
Hmm.
And I think in 3 we kind of lose that because he's on the run and he's trying to then go after the high table at this point to clear his name, and it becomes a little bit more grander of scope rather than like still by the end of 2 he's like, I want to go back to this burnt house that's exploded with my dog
Yeah.
and
The
get away
emotional
with it,
stakes of 1 are so simple, but they're so effective. It
Yeah, and I
is.
think 2 kind of still has that emotional core, but then of course by the end of 2, which is I think the best way that this series has ended on a film, him running in New York and leaving you on the high to get to 3, and then the opening of 3 is so great that like the rest of the movie is I feel like for me, and why I really do like 3, it's I just think the lesser one of the franchise is
We're
it,
picking nits here because they're all
we're
so
really we
good.
really are because like I still think it's a great movie, but like the high of the beginning of that movie and that adrenaline chase through New York is so great and leaves you satisfied from being, left in the dust for like 2 years waiting for that. Then like the rest of the movie, I'm like, I really don't give a crap about
Yeah,
anything
and then
else
I'm
here
like,
nearly as much.
yeah, he
Yeah,
goes and gets his finger cut off. I'm like,
yeah, and stuff like that. But
talk
then
about
like
that
but then
weird,
like
that insane lore that they're building. I'm like,
but the
give me
fight in the
all of that.
Continental,
Force feed me.
yeah, the fight in the Continental's great. And then you even
Yes,
get like, Lance Reddick involved and sort of like the high table versus John Wick, essentially. And that's what I love about this movie. I think this movie just kind of takes everything from 3 and elevates it even to like you are less, it sounds like a little bit lesser on, to ridiculous levels. I think like Bill Sarsgaard here
he's
is
having fun.
he's having fun as a person that like of course the high table would hire somebody that basically is essentially taking the character from the first film, but taking it to a degree of like, your job now of this title is to kill John Wick. I don't care how you do it. You have all your
Yeah,
all the things that the high table want. And I like the fact that essentially it becomes like John Wick beating this man to the point where you have so many branches of enemies that are friends and foes and new characters and arch rivals, and to the point in which like you have what is essentially the entire city of Paris trying to kill him at a certain point. And it's
yeah.
so wild and bombastic, and it works perfectly. I think that the one thing that gets hung up from this movie is a little bit of the connective tissue that ties it from the end of 3, in that we just kind of forget about all the things that happened at the end of that movie for all the characters involved, including Winston, Even though it's like there's a deal made there, but then the deal is revoked by Sarsgaard from the high table when he gets the power. I think Lawrence Fishburne just looks good now. He's not a zombie anymore. And Wick has just been
he's got like stitch
got a little eye
stars on
patch,
his
right?
face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
when Larry Fish is the first guy that has a line in this movie, and it is like going back to Morpheus levels of swagger and presence.
we knew what we were in for.
Not another small complaint. Not enough Larry Fish.
No,
he's
there's never
amazing.
enough
He's
Larry
not in the
Fish in
movie a
every
ton.
movie.
Yeah, yeah, you're right
Listen,
about that.
Lawrence Fishburne is a goat. He is a legend.
Yeah, he's the man.
I still don't understand why we couldn't have him. I understand in the Matrix Resurrections like how they worked it out, but it's like yeah, it's great, but I want Lawrence Fishburne in every movie. Like period.
Yeah.
End of story. It feels weird not having him in a Matrix movie. It was weird, but we get him in this, and yes, his line delivery is so over the top, but it's so welcomed. You know what I mean?
So
and
good.
he's great, and Keanu's just amazing in this role. I mean, he really is. He just I don't and I was lucky, Jay, to see this at the North American premiere at South by Southwest.
And I'm sure the crowd was electric.
It was insane. So there are a lot of moments in this movie where, just like in every John Wick movie, where Keanu Reeves is fighting somebody and gets hit by a car or falls to the ground or
He
literally
gets beat up in
falls
this
down.
movie so much.
He literally falls down multiple flights of stairs. Falls through buildings.
That part was hysterical.
It was hysterical. Watching that moment with a crowd, that scene specifically, was every time he was falling down through a flight of stairs. Everyone was going, oh, no, and it just kept building and building, and then he'd fall to the ground, and there was this one lady in the audience that just kept screaming, "Get up, Keanu!" And like the whole audience just went crazy, and he's sitting like 2 rows in front of me, and they're like, him and Stahelski are just eating this up, and it plays so well with the crowd that I understand why everyone is calling this a masterpiece. I understand why everyone is saying that like this is a great action vehicle, because it is. It's one of the best authentic action films that we've had in such a long time.